Welcome to She's a Full-On Monet, a digital lifestyle magazine for women. Every week, our editor-in-chief, Kelly Castillo, along with Megan Block and special guests, participate in a deep dive discussion about recent articles and topics we have covered. We invite you to become part of our community where everyone's welcome. You can totally sit with us.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to She's a Full-On Monet. We appreciate you guys joining us week to week as the podcast audience is growing. It's really exciting to see that. So this week we are going to be covering a very mom life appropriate subject. We're talking about how to make school mornings, especially Monday mornings, easier, as well as how to make homework nights easier, but mostly those hectic getting out of the door and on to school on time kind of mornings, which I know Megan and I are both very qualified to talk about. Before we started recording, I was telling Megan that I really love her background. She is very much in the spooky season.
Yeah. That's a thing I do.
I love it. I totally love it. You guys have to excuse my background. For those of you who are watching this on video, we are in the process of packing up and it's very hectic over here. So you will have to excuse.
In different processes, I'm unpacking and you're packing. It's like, not fun either way.
No, it's not. So please excuse boxes or noise that you hear in my background, and just focus on Megan's super cute spooky season background today.
The aesthetic.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. So I know for me and my personal experience, getting the kids out of the door and to school on time was something I really struggled with through like the elementary school years. And from the very beginning, my kids were late to school a lot. I know that really bothered the school. It bothered the school more than it bothered me.
Did it bother your children ever? Were they the type that if they were late to school, it would like get them anxiety or get them upset? Because some kids are very,
Yeah, my youngest has anxiety and she's also like a very big rule follower and type A personality. So yeah, it bothered her. Nobody else really seemed that bothered by it. But as I progressed through school from elementary school with my oldest, all the way through to getting my youngest to high school on time, through her senior year and everything, because she didn't drive, then we really got like a system down that worked for us, and it stopped being a problem, but it takes time.
It does. It takes time. And for me, we're very similar in this, I feel, and I think I learned a lot of my tips and tricks from you. I'm very much like I like to prepare ahead. And I feel like the more ahead of the game I am, the more room there is for the uncontrollable chaos that will ensue that morning, because no matter how prepared you are, someone can't find a tank top, or like someone stubs their foot on the way out the door and you're like, for real, so you need to like prepare as much as you can so that you can prepare for the chaos that will happen inevitably.
Yeah. This is something I tell people a lot and they never really believe me. They kind of laugh it off and say, oh, everybody says that. Megan can attest to the fact that I have just about the worst luck that is possible.
It's like someone needs to hear your stories and then create a television show about it, because it's too crazy.
Yeah.
So that makes you very relaxed in moments of chaos, because you're used to chaos all the time.
Yeah. Chaos is my normal. And that's one of the things that Megan's kind of referencing in this, is that I learned because of that, the more work I do on the front end, anticipating that something will go wrong, the easier everything is on the back end. And if I'm expecting it, then I planned ahead for it. I allowed extra time for the inevitable.
And I feel like our kids my oldest has anxiety. Your youngest struggles with anxiety. I feel like they feed off of that super stressed out energy that I give off. And that is the absolute last thing as a mother that I want to give them as they're going off to school. I want them to be just focused on what they need to focus on and not feed off that energy. So I do that also so that I can not be that frazzled, stressed out mom that's like shoving stuff in a lunchbox and screaming to get their shoes on. Like if the lunch is already made, then I can calmly tell them to put their shoes on. I don't want that anxiety to be there when they leave, because that'll give me this horrible feeling all day of like, oh, did I affect her math test because of the crazy morning that I gave off? For me, that's like the most important of everything. Above getting them on time to school, above everything is like making sure that their mind is in the right place to learn and to grow, and to not focus on like the crazy morning that happened, because that's happened before. And she's left the car and I'm like, what on earth did I do?
I can tell you that, okay. So when my oldest started kindergarten, he was 5, he was 4. He started kindergarten early because his birthday's on Halloween. So, he was 4, which meant I had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, who also needed to come with me to take them to him to school, because I had no option. No one else was at home to help me. So that meant loading, basically 3 toddlers into the car and driving or walking up the street to the school. And there were a lot of mornings, and this continued until probably my oldest daughter started kindergarten. This is when we really hit kind of a stride. But there were mornings when people would get out of the car, the kids would get out of the car to go to school, and I would be crying and they would be crying because we all screamed at each other. And it sets the tone for the whole day in such a negative energy. And I would get home and I would feel like the worst mother ever. My whole day would be basically ruined because I was imagining that they were carrying that through their school day. Now, as kids, literally they shrugged it off the second they got to school, but I didn't.
Brilliant. But we as moms think that,
yeah. And I would be, tearing up over my coffee thinking that I ruined their day. And so part of the process of fixing that was some of the steps that we're going to go through today. But for me personally, also part of the solution to that was letting go of the feeling that I needed to have my kid be perfectly on time every day. My oldest does things in his own time. He cannot be.
Okay,
to this day,
I was a nanny for you for a few years, and oh boy, do I know the different dynamics of your children. And your oldest was the struggle that in the morning, because he just, like life moves at his pace in his head, no matter what fire is happening. It doesn't. No, doesn't matter what I didn't make that speed go any quicker.
No, he's very much a free spirit, and he doesn't really like authority that much. He doesn't, and that he's found his place in this world. And I think he's doing so amazing. He's 27. So he's a full adult now, functioning on his own and independent of me. But, when he was younger, and he still is like this to this day, he does things in his own timing. He's very relaxed all the time. And he just kind of moseys along through life, and there's no sense of urgency, and it can't be provoked in him. No. You cannot motivate him with rewards or punishments. That he just doesn't work on the same wavelength as like a structured school system does. So, I mean, for a period of time in high school, I homeschooled him because it was easier. And, but getting him to kindergarten, and one of my issues, and this is my personal issue that I still feel bad to this day, got kind of, you trickle down whatever your personal insecurities are to your children by your behavior. I have obviously learned better and do better now. But when my oldest was starting kindergarten, he was 4. I was the youngest mom in the class by a large margin. I had him at 18. I was 22 years old. I thought everyone was automatically, and I also looked really young for my age. I looked like a teenager. Yeah. So people would look at me and I assumed they were judging me for being that young teen mom. Yeah. And so my kid needed to be perfectly dressed, perfectly clean, perfectly on time, because I already knew that I was going to get looks and comments. So it made me, that was my own insecurity. Now at 45, I have 0 fucks left to give, and I don't care at all what anyone thinks of me. But at 22 and trying to be like the model mom, and plus I had 3 kids by then at 22. Right. So I already knew everyone was looking at me thinking, oh, she's a young teen mom with way too many kids. Like she's probably this or that. So I overcompensated by wanting my kids to be perfect all the time. And it didn't serve them and it didn't serve me. So as soon as I got a little older and the maturity kind of set in, and I let go of a lot of that, it was such a more harmonious time for everyone. Like, cause who cares at the end of the day?
Yeah. Like most of the time when I'm dropping my oldest off, my youngest doesn't even have shoes on. So, and I'm sorry, I'm still looking at those other moms that like have everything together. And I'm like, honestly, what time did you wake up? Like, what, do I need to wake up at 3 a.m. to also look like that? Because like, I wake up early and I still have zero time to put a comb through my hair, or like when I drop her off and she's on time and she's got everything in her backpack and, she's got a mask and she's got lunch and all of that, I'm feeling like a winner. But then also the woman to my right did the same thing, but she also looks like so put together. And I'm just sitting here going, what? How do we have the same morning?
Yeah,
like,
no, you don't is the answer. You
out.
don't, because I was that super put together mom with super put together kids.
How?
Who got to kindergarten on time with hair done and perfect clothes. And I ironed a 5-year-old's clothes. Like, I was insane, but our mental health, all of us suffered for that.
5-year-old's,
right?
Wow. That's crazy.
So, but I mean, I wasn't in a good mental place and neither were they because of that. So the faster we let that go, the better we are. This applies to everyone. We all have our own insecurities. We all have our own stuff from our own childhood that we carry over. The sooner you let all of that go, the better off everybody's morning, afternoon, evening, etc. will be.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So this is our topic today, corresponds as always with an article of the same topic. And sometimes, Megan and I just kind of go off on our own on these topics and we always do that, but
further dive into what will be or what has been an article that we
right. So our article on this topic was written by one of our writers who's also a mom. So I think her perspective is great. And most of the tips that she has included would have been stuff that we probably would have touched on as well. So we're going to go down her list of tips. I still recommend you read the article because she went a little deeper than we will, and we'll have our own takes on it. But I think she covered most of it. So the first thing is that she has written here is manage your expectations. I think we are talking about what we just covered. Manage your expectations. Yeah. And but also she expands on it a little bit to the like things that your kids can do for themselves as far as being autonomous I think it's a Waldorf or a Montessori value that don't do things for your children that they're capable of doing for themselves, which I think we can all agree is probably a good theory.
I gotta take that and ride with that because I feel like I'm doing too much generally. Like they're capable of doing some certain things. I just feel like I either do it by habit or I feel like I can do it better than them. So I just do it. But that's
and if you're trying to get to school at drop off time and your child wants to tie their own shoe, you're going to be late. So you have to make a decision.
Realistic, but they can probably do a 75% good job of brushing their own hair. You don't have to take time to do it. You could be doing other stuff that is taking time out of your morning that you could, give off to someone else.
Right. So I think that as a theory is good overall. And I think we should kind of stick to that, but also, manage your expectations as far as when you really need to be strict on that and when, you need to let that slide so that everybody does better in the morning.
The tie your own shoes thing is a perfect example of that because you want them to try and you want them to do it, but at the same time, they're not going to do it, and you have 3 minutes to get to school, and school's 10 minutes away. So let's cut the crap.
Right. I can't tell you how many things
later.
Yeah. I can tell you how many things I've been late to because I had a toddler saying, "Me do it."
Gosh.
Okay. Me do it. Yeah. We may not make it, but you do it.
And you have to be patient and encouraging when you're like raging inside. You're like,
yeah.
Be realistic.
I think you and I are both pretty good about this, but prepping for the day ahead or the week ahead. You and I are both happier when we're organized. And I know that it comes more naturally to you, I think, than it does to me. I'm not a naturally organized person. What I've learned about myself is that if I put systems in place that help me, I will stick to them better. Like everything needs to have a place for me to put it. If it doesn't have a place, I let things pile up. I'm just not naturally like a clutter-free and organized person. I have to have everything labeled, everything has a spot. But once it's in place, I execute it pretty well. So I think planning for the week ahead and the next day is crucial to this is probably the most crucial tip.
It's crucial. I always prep lunches the night before. I always make my kid pick out her clothes the day before, because heaven forbid, there's so many mornings. Personally, I remember waking up and going, I don't know what to wear. It's like a crisis that could be 30 minutes. So I have her pick what she's going to wear. I set the backpack out and pack it up so that in the morning, because she likes to sleep a little bit, some kids like to sleep in, and she would rather get ready the night before than wake up and early and get ready for all these things. You just have to know your child and know what works for you, and then prepare ahead of time for that. Because I've done the whole wing it thing, and that's the worst mornings. Like when I'm like, oh, I'll make lunch the day after, I'll make lunch the morning of, or I'll do all this the morning of, and you just do it. It never works. You have to prepare if you really want to see actual change in the chaos,
Yeah. And again, you have to know your household and your kids to know what that means for you personally. Exactly. Obviously, you should always know what the weather is going to be, that you can
always run through that and tell them so that they know put out.
Yeah. If you know your kid and they can lay out their clothes the night before, it's one less thing you have to do in the morning. But if you know your kid, like I had more than one kid like this, who, if they laid out their clothes the night before, they would wake up the next morning and decide, I don't want to wear that today. I'm not even the same person I was yesterday.
They still do, but it's like, it might not, it's a habit now. My kid also doesn't really care as much about not that she doesn't care about what she looks like, but it's basically like she's got a style that works for her, and it's not one that it's not a complicated morning to figure out a style.
My youngest
for me,
my youngest was literally a different person style wise from day to day. So she might have worn a tutu with cowboy boots and suspenders the day before, but today she wants to wear the school uniform that we signed a waiver allowing her not to wear. So then the next day she would want to wear something, completely a twirly dress. Like, it's totally dependent on her mood. So that didn't work for her. It worked for my older kids. You have to know, like, packing lunches, if you know that evenings are more hectic for you than mornings, that's a decision you need to make. Maybe you prep everything when you bring it home from the grocery store, as far as like slicing fruit, making, pre-making things and having it ready so that you can just throw it in the lunchbox the morning of, if evenings are your hectic time. It got to the point with us where we had lots of different sports practices and extracurricular activities, where by the time we got home in the evening, we were wiped. So it was easier for me to do some of that in the morning. It's, again, you have to know your family. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sure. Everybody is different, but I know for me, one of the things that really worked the best and made my mornings the most seamless was to make a lot of make-ahead breakfasts that were pre-made. I usually would do them on Sundays, and I would make, like, my kids none of them like the same foods. Like, it's ridiculous. So I would pre-make like egg and sausage muffins or egg and cheese muffins that you can make in muffin tins, and bake them. And they're really easy to reheat really fast. I would make breakfast sandwiches. I would cut up fruit and make little pre-made bowls of fruit. So I knew what each kid liked, and I tried to prep that on Sundays so that breakfasts were something they could, if we were running late, they could grab and eat in the car instead of throwing a cereal bar or something at them. Yeah. Which happened.
Fill for a second, but they'll be hungry in like 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very good point. Yeah. Anything that works for your family, and try it for a week and see if the chaos dies down a little bit. It's not, like we said, it's not going to make everything be perfect. You're not going to be sipping your coffee calmly and then like waltzing out the door. There will be a little bit of chaos, but this is so that you prep ahead so that when that time comes, it's not just like all chaos, Yeah. Mental health is important for moms as well. And I feel like when we're thinking about what did I do to my kids this morning, and we're off in a bad energy cycle, and then we, treat ourselves to like Starbucks because we had a bad morning. It's just this like snowball effect of bad energy or like fake energy. That it's like, if we just did a little prepping or a little thinking ahead, like, how can I make this easier for me personally? how can I apply some of these tips to make them easier for me? I promise, give it a week and you'll see even if it's 20% better, it's still better than nothing, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And knowing your child is part of that managing expectations of what, if you allow the same thing to happen every day and frustrate you the same way every day, then that's a signal, obviously, that what you're doing isn't working and you need to change. Some of my kids were fine using their phones or alarm clocks and wake themselves up in the morning. Some of my kids, I had to wake up most of the time more than once. I had to wake them up and then 5 minutes later, wake them up again. So knowing your kid and already knowing they're going to need that manages those expectations. So you're not in there frustrated and angry. Even, they do this every morning. So expect it. Don't be surprised by it. And plan ahead for it. Give
Not
yourself
every
those
kid is
extra
the
5 minutes.
You might
Right.
be able to only, have to manage one out of the two because the other one's pretty self-sufficient.
Mhm.
Literally, my 4-year-old comes out with her hair combed and her, brand new outfit on, smiling and saying good morning. Like, she makes me want to be a better person in the morning. She's 4. She has the maturity of a 40-year-old. I have no, and then my 9-year-old, I have to like shake a few times out of bed and then she grumbles and it's like a thing, which is why we put our clothes out the night before, because she values sleep more than she values looking like a certain style,
Right.
like,
yeah.
I personally would love, I woke up at 6 a.m. My dad would wake us up no matter what our preference was. But I really cared, not that she doesn't, but I really cared about like what my style was, similar to what your youngest. And so I didn't mind putting that extra 30 minutes in. I didn't really value sleep as much as I did what I presented myself at school. So
yeah. And you'll find that changes too as your kids get older. My daughters in high school kind of reversed. My older daughter would wake up super early to make sure she had full hair, makeup, outfit on point. My younger daughter switched over from these elaborate outfits to basically wearing sweats to school because she just didn't care. So kids have different personalities. So you have to parent them different because they aren't the same people. They're not cookie cutter. So that's a big thing. I think it makes everybody's life easier overall, but also getting ready, getting homework done, all of those things. And I don't know if this is another point on there, but I don't know if you have, I'm talking to the readers, Megan, I know you have, ever been in a preschool classroom or a kindergarten classroom. You will notice right away, there are lots of bins and lots of cubbies. That's because it works. they have refined
for a reason.
Yeah. They have refined these processes over many, many years of teaching. And they know that each kid having their cubby with their name on it, where to put their backpack and their papers.
Well, kids look for direction. Kids look for a little bit because that's how their school is. And I mean, even my 4th grader, she still has a place to put her backpack, a place to put her, a desk that has designated bins. Like they thrive on a little bit of organization,
Well, and it will make your life as well as their life easier and more pleasant. So think about it. Where do you guys enter the house when you get home from school? Do you go through the garage door? Do you go through a back door, side door, the front door? Do you have a mud room? Do you have, a laundry room that you walk through to get to the main space? Wherever it makes sense for you, add some cubbies that are one for each kid where they can, and it doesn't really, this is not age sensitive, where they can put their things. I had these like hanging wall file things where I think I got them at like Dollar Tree or Target or whatever, but where each kid had a file and actually they had 2. One was for any like artwork or test things that they brought home that they didn't need back. And the other one was for permission slips, notes I needed to sign, things like that. So I would check those so that I wasn't surprised in the morning. Oh, I need my permission slip signed.
Or how many times are we like, Mom, where's my homework? Mom, where's this? Like if you have designated spots, then the Mom, where's my blah, blah, blah. Cause we're supposed to know and remember everything is
right.
Apparently. Then that's one less thing.
We had a basket for the kids to put their shoes because we didn't wear shoes in our house at the time. Right there. And then a hook. And I mean, I had a lot of kids, so it's different. If you have 1 or 2, it's probably not that necessary. But one of the key things for us was color coding. When my kids were small, each kid had a color. Their luggage was that color. Their backpack was that color, or had that color ribbon tied on it. If they wanted, I don't know, Paw Patrol backpack or whatever, they had their toothbrush was that color there. And this avoided, I can't tell you how many fights in our house. Nobody had to say, she took my this, he's touching my that. I could tell by looking at it. If it was purple, it belonged to Sam. If it was pink, it belonged to Gabby. Like it was so clear from day one. So having that kind of a system, just everyone knows exactly where their thing is and it's identifiable. And it makes, for me, it made my life so much easier.
That's a good tip. Yeah. Because then it's like, it's just less drama, because drama will happen.
Drama will happen. But if you have a lot of kids, things get mixed up. I mean, my kids were close in age, so they were almost the same size clothes, and they were 1 year apart in school. So there was stuff that looked, I couldn't tell by looking at it who it belonged to. So if we hadn't had a color coded system, it would have gotten into serious chaos very, very quickly.
Good
and
point.
When my kids were little, they did not have this kind of stuff, but now they have these apps that are like family calendars where you can, they're also color coded. There you can put everybody's sports schedules, school schedules, your family doctor appointments. I mean, absolutely everything that you guys have as a family, and it's separated by person, but it all overlays. There's like, I know there's one called Cozy. There's one called FamCal. There's a few to look at. If you go on the App Store, I'm sure you can find one that works for you, but having one master calendar where you can see what everybody has going on when your kids get older and they're in multiple sports and they do things outside of school. I mean, my girls were competition cheerleaders. There were traveling cheer meets. There were different practices where different uniforms were required Monday, Wednesday, Friday, then Tuesday, Thursday. And for a period of time, I had 4 kids in 3 different schools. And so the early outs and the late starts and the day, I mean, I like, honestly,
as your nanny, even when it was just like two schools, I feel like sometimes I couldn't figure it out. I'm like, oh shoot, that person got out, won something today. Cause it's a whatever that they make things up now. They set it up so you fail if you have more than one child. 4. So the fact that you got it right as much as you did is like, hats off to you, because it's impossible nowadays with all the different types of bell schedules that they have for things. You know?
So the cubby, I mean, the calendar system is key. I wish I had had that. I really do.
Because then or dad knows that it's an early out, and you didn't. They're not sitting outside because dad normally doesn't pick them up. There's one place everyone can read it. It's on your phone. There's no.
Yes. They make it like where you can have a tablet on the kitchen counter that everyone can see. That helps too. I think the cubby system, it can kind of morph as the kids grow and get older, because they will have days they have to remember certain sports equipment or an instrument, or they bring home PE clothes to be laundered.
Or the masks, like you don't know if they're dirty or clean, and sometimes they're in backpacks and they're like, I didn't know, like cut any designated system that works for you and the space that you have is a great way, other than just having it on the ground and in their room and like all the things that come with that. It's just,
I can't tell you how many times that the kids brought their PE clothes home on a Friday and just didn't say anything to me. And then
swim in their dirty, wet bathing suit, and you're like, you didn't tell me. Oh, I thought you saw it. What?
Then Monday morning, they're getting ready to leave for school, and they're like, oh, my disgusting PE clothes are still in my backpack, and they've made my whole backpack smell like stinky boy sweat for the whole weekend. I mean, no, like it's bad.
No, and they tell you that, but they tell you it not to vent. They tell you it like it's a problem you now must solve. It's like, Mom.
Or like, how did you not go through my backpack and find these clothes I did not tell you was in there?
Blame on mom scenario where it's like, how did you not know? I told you once in a passing moment that Friday's my PE day. How did you not know to go through my backpack? Wow. Good luck in real life with that mentality.
Yeah. And I mean, one of my sons played sports. He did wrestling, and there were uniforms and PE clothes that he wore and stunk out every single day of the week. There was a ringworm epidemic going on in his school. And so, I mean, those things have to stay on top of it. And then all of my kids had jobs in high school. So most of them had work uniforms that they also needed to have laundered and ready on work days. So it gets more, what I'm saying is as they get older and become teenagers, you imagine it's going to get easier to manage, especially when they get their driver's license.
Because they're self-sufficient or whatever.
No. It gets harder because they have travel sports. Even if you're in a school sport, they have home games and away games, and they have different,
and they actually are capable, but they just don't. And
they're capable, but they're also just learning how to kind of adult, and they need a lot of reminding. So they have home uniforms and away uniforms and maybe a work uniform and PE clothes and books. I mean, my kids were lucky enough to go to a school where they got 2 sets of books. One stayed home, one stayed at school. But I can't, before that happened, before this school made that change, I would get 8:00 at night. Mom, can you drive me to school? I need a book out of my locker. I have a report due tomorrow.
That's the worst.
It's the worst.
In Emma's school, my oldest daughter's school, they implemented a rule. I'm sure it's in a lot of other schools, where like if the kid forgets their homework at home, as a parent, I'm not allowed to bring it. It's like a responsibility thing. They need to learn consequences of what happens if they don't bring. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, cool, one less thing I have to worry about, because they just seriously will not let me. They will.
Now
water, yes. Like masks, yes, they have extra masks actually, but like homework.
Yeah. One thing I really strongly believe in is personal accountability and natural consequences. That was kind of the rule in our house.
Amen.
If you forgot your lunch, you were hungry, or you borrowed off your friends. Like, what do you have extra that I can eat? Like, that was kind of the consequences.
Because I'm like, my Emma forgot her water last week, and she's like, Mom, you forgot to pack my water. And I'm like, A, you're 9. You didn't check before you left. But I'm like, maybe I've just let you think this was my job the whole time.
Right. That's what
water. Cause I'm like, you're going to be so thirsty. But I also thought it's your problem. Right. Natural consequences.
If you forgot your jacket, you were probably going to be cold. I mean, they're not going to, we live in California. They're not going to get pneumonia. Don't you guys worry about that.
You experience it once, and then you know not to forget your jacket, because if you bail them out, then they'll forget their jacket 5 more times.
And you'll get that call once a week.
Yeah,
absolutely. But I mean, we live in California. They're not going to get sick. They're going to be fine.
Even if they did, they're not going to die. You know what I mean? Like, come on, you're not making them walk 30 miles home in the snow in a tank top. It's not like that. But at the same time, how else are they going to learn at some point?
And I have to say, my kids are pretty resourceful. One of my children forgot stuff on a regular basis and would go to Lost and Found and just like pilfer and then put it back at the end of the day.
It's just like,
but that's problem solving. So I can't disagree.
I appreciate that. Mom's got a lot to do already. Because when you drop the kids off, it's not like, I mean, I'm sorry, not me. I'm not chilling at home. And that's when my day begins of chaos,
Mm-hmm.
And then I got to pick you up in what feels like the blink of an eye. So don't bug me with I forgot my whatever, fill in the blank, No.
And I mean, I one of my favorite things to say to my kids when they were small was, I'm not your personal assistant. Because I'm an actual full human of my own. I have my own things to do while you are in school. Your job is to go to school. That's your job, to remember everything for school and to go to school and do your work. I have other responsibilities and other jobs that I have to do during that time.
Stuff, who do you call? No one.
No one.
Your job.
You
good. Your dad and be like, hey, Dad.
No,
it's your job as an adult. So like, and though they're tiny adults, people, so like time to kind of teach them at some point, maybe not when they're 3, but a natural responsibility thing is kind of important.
Yeah. My kids were teenagers. Another issue was the gas in their cars. They would sometimes get in their car in the morning to go to school and be like, oh my God, I only have 2 miles in my tank. I'm going to be late to school. Can you call the school and make an excuse? And I was like, no, because we had a rule in our house that the quarter tank line on your fuel gauge was empty in our house. So if you hit quarter tank, consider it to be empty. Don't ever let it get below that, because you don't know where you're going to be. You might be in a hurry to go somewhere and realize you don't have enough gas to get there. You have to stop. Or, I'm not going to come bring you my kids have ran out of gas before, and I've had to come and bring them a gas can. And we instituted this mental rule. My dad taught it to me. That's how I have it. I don't let my gas get below a quarter tank, because my dad taught me that is the empty line, not the the actual quarter tank line. but I mean, I've ran out of gas before and had to call for help. It's horrible. It makes you late for wherever you were
I'm just
going.
thinking about the fact that I'm like super out of gas right now in my car. And I'm literally mentally mapping where the nearest, because I just moved, the nearest gas station is, because I'm always terrified of running out of gas. I never have, but I've pushed that limit, and I don't know. It's not a good idea. But
no,
yeah.
and when teenagers, especially your teenage, I mean, it shouldn't be this way, but especially your teenage daughters. One of my biggest fears was them being on the side of the road somewhere. And thankfully they had cell phones, but being at the mercy of strangers or whatever. I did not want them to be in that kind of a vulnerable position. I watch way too much true crime for that. So, I would teach them never to get your gas tank low, because, you don't want to be sitting in your car on the side of the road. But I also want to talk about school supplies, because I know probably you've dealt with this. I've dealt with it multiple times, where in the late at night, your kid tells you, oh my gosh, I need a poster board for something that's due tomorrow.
That's funny. Yeah.
Or
I need a biography due tomorrow and I'm presenting and I need a poster board. Yeah.
Yeah. Or I need 6 colors of highlighters for this thing that my teacher wants done this particular way. Or yeah. So keeping a lot of supplies stocked in your house is probably the key to this.
Is that what we do? Okay.
Yeah, we do that.
Just like, how do you win at this? Do you just keep spare everythings? Because my kid comes home and it's just unfair. It comes down with the lack of respect for us as like
for our time. Right. Because I've
what? Like Jeannie, like, okay, here you go. Here's your poster board. Like, what do I do? So we are now a mini Office Depot is the resolution to this problem.
That's what worked for me, because I'll tell you how I got to that point. Now, okay. You see that I'm like the boxes behind me that I'm packing. Today is our project to pack my office. And I had to clean out the drawer that I no longer need it because my kids are no longer in school at home with me, but it had different like sticker letters of every size. It had poster board, construction paper. It had everything that you would need for school projects. And I kept, because this is the story that happened. This was only like Gabby's junior year. So 2-3 years ago. No, I was probably 11 o'clock at night and she had told me she had a project to do. We went to Rite Aid and bought a poster board for her project. And she is, as I said, type A, a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of a perfectionist. She did not like the way that it turned out. So rather than wake me to tell me that she needed to go, and she didn't drive, she Postmated a single 99-cent piece of poster board.
I would have checked like
she copped on Postmates, and they had someone bring her a single piece of 99-cent poster board,
like $11.
Yes,
probably. Right?
Yes.
But who cares?
And the only reason I knew about it was because I saw the gate pass that they came in.
$1 poster board. Right.
Yes. So that after that, I was like, okay, even when she's told me about the project, we went and got the supplies for the project. Like in California, we have to make a copy of the California mission. It's, I think, a 6th or 7th grade project. They make a California mission. They make a little model of the mission in California. It's one of our state projects. And same kid. We had gotten all the supplies and she was building her project, and she realized that the plastic animals that she got for the like farm side of her mission were not to scale.
Oh, I kind of saw that when you said farm animals. I was like, oh man, I bet you they're the size of the mission. Like
we went to Michael's and we bought like a tube of plastic farm animals, but all the animals were the same size. So the chicken was the same size as the horse, was the same size as the cow. And she could not like wrap her head around this. And it was not acceptable to her.
Well, it just makes everything look elementary. I think we're cut from the same cloth, her and I, because I would be the same way and it would drive me nuts.
Now I'm picking on her a little bit in this, but I have to say
to put all that hard work and then have a chicken and a horse be the same size is a little.
Yeah, she was not about it. So she had to go get more animals of different sizes. But I will say, now she's a sophomore in college. She doesn't ask for my help with anything that she's doing other than like, hey, can you proofread this essay or something? She has 113% grade point average right now, or whatever she told me. Yeah. What? So she takes every like extra credit opportunity. It's the girl is thriving, but but it was rough when she was in elementary school because she is such a perfectionist. But we worked through it, and I will tell you that having that stock of school supplies, I never had to run out in the late at night to a Michael's or a Office Depot or anything like that again, because I did make sure that, and I also like the recommended reading list didn't change that much because my kids were only a year apart in school. So I would buy all the books once, and I just wrote our last name in them, not the kid's first name, because we were the only ones with that last name at our school. So the kids all used the same version of the book. It got to the point, I saved some of them because it was so funny, that they would write notes to the next kid in the book. Like they would do little drawings or write little funny notes in the margins of the book, knowing it would be passed down to their sibling.
That's cute. I like that.
So they're like a little time capsule now, because they all have little notes and stuff to each other in these high school books. But the ones they have to read from year to year as they go through the higher grades of high school, they don't change that much. So those are the kind of things, like if you're organized and you keep those things, they can transfer over. But stocking up, once you go through it with your first child, you pretty much know what the projects are going to be and what is going to be required. So if your kids are close together like mine, I knew, okay, I'm going to need all this stuff next year too. I'm just going to keep it here and stock it. And I had the space to do so. I guess if you're in a really small space, that's a little harder.
Yeah. I mean, if you I Mod Podge pumpkins on my off time. So I just naturally have a lot of arts and crafts and stuff around. And that has come in handy when, some projects just because I didn't have to buy. I mean, it does help even with cut down costs too. Is like, I already had it. So I didn't have to worry about it surprising me in my budget. I already kind of had it. But still, sometimes I'll just be like, you didn't know about this sooner. Like you couldn't have told me while I was already at Target. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, okay. So having it already, it's all goes down to that basic principle of preparedness and knowing your family and knowing what works for you. But like you said, if something's consistently hitting you in the head, you're going to find a way to not let that hit you in the head anymore. So you're going to, if this is a consistent morning issue for you, then you should find a way to make it not that way, Yeah,
so we all deserve to have, a morning that sets a good tone for the rest of our day.
Mm-hmm.
I know for me, that meant waking up maybe half an hour earlier than I wanted to, just so that I could have my coffee in peace before I had to wake up the kids and really get into the chaos of it, and prep a little bit, just so look at my calendar for the day and kind of think, what do I need for today? What's happening today? Kind of get my mind right. And that was worth the extra half hour loss of sleep for me. Everybody's different. If you need the sleep and you feel prepared already, then you don't need to worry about that. I think there's a couple keys here that I think are probably the bottom line. Do what works for you and your family. Your kids are not my kids and they're not Megan's kids. And every person is an individual. So do what works for you. You know your kids better than anyone, and set up a system that works for them and their personalities. And, I think at the end of the day, it took me time to learn this, but relax. Don't take any of it that seriously. I know the school called me in multiple times to tell me that my kids were late too often, but
really?
Yeah, because they were.
Yeah. I know, but it's like, when is anyone's kid ever late because they're just don't care? They're either driving really far away because they live really far away, or they're a single mom with a lot of stuff going on in the morning. I just feel like, to me, that's a slap in the face, because it's like, we already know, and we're already kind of subconsciously trying to figure it out. Rarely do you find an individual who also has children who are also individuals who just simply don't care. So when they call you and be like, oh, by the way, it's like, oh, okay, is this you volunteering to come over and help
me in the morning?
Not, then go away. Because like, to me, that's just annoying. Like,
yeah, I would say once your kids,
no,
it's
about my situation right now.
It's very judgmental. I understand that start times are there for everyone and for a reason,
but we're trying, we just moved, and I was just happy that my kids had an outfit and a mask and clean clothes, and like, we kind of were on time, but we just moved. I mean, but the school system wasn't calling and like asking to help unpack my boxes for me. So it's like, just go back.
Yeah. Your mental health, your kids' mental health is way more important than what the elementary school or middle school has to say about whether your kids are on time.
People calling you and reminding you you're late, then maybe just implementing one or two of these rules, because you definitely don't need that reminder that you already are fully aware of as a grown person who had children.
Right. I will say that when they get to high school, it actually counts against them and not you. That's on their report card, the tardies. So that's something that you should work out a system by the time they're that age, just because this is something that goes on their transcripts. This is important. And hopefully that's why we have those first 9 years of school to get a system in place and get that flow going.
Practice at getting a system down, because they also need a system, they need a place to do their homework, a designated place to do their homework, to keep their things. They need a system so that when they become tiny adults and they move into college, their life isn't chaos and they're not late to class, that they're now paying a lot of money for.
Right.
There.
That's the thing. In most college classes, you can only miss 3 and the door is locked at time. I mean, they give you 5 minutes and they lock the door. So teaching your kids to be accountable to a schedule and to be prepared and respect other people's time, that their time is not more valuable than anyone else's time, is a lesson they need to learn before they leave for college, because if they won't have any accountability. There's nobody waking them up for class when they're in college by themselves. There's nobody reminding them to bring a jacket, bring a book. Did you eat something? They have to, if you've been doing that and you've really been doing that
like every day from kindergarten to the last day of high school, and now they're going off and away to college.
Yeah.
Best of luck.
Right.
They don't have them anymore.
I have seen my kids through college now. So I've also seen some of their friends who did have like that a lot of help getting going in the morning and getting things done, or parents who did some projects and things for on their behalf, struggle when they got to college. They struggled without with no accountability. They struggled with the environment, every professor has a different expectation, a different syllabus, wants things done differently. There's a lot, and you're away from home. A lot of times they don't know how to do their own laundry. They don't know how to cook. They don't know how to, if you don't prepare your kids a little bit when they're in high school, you're setting them up for a really hard time their freshman year in college.
Nothing wrong with it, but chances are they'll probably come back within a year and live at home and try something more local, because they just simply feel like they weren't ready,
Yeah, I saw that happen a lot.
But also a few tweaks in the morning throughout the years could have prepared them for that,
Yeah. One of our jobs as parents is to prepare our kids for the real world. And that means being accountable to people who aren't their parents, like if they have a job, they have to be accountable to their boss. Same thing for teachers and professors. And to respect other people's time and time management skills in general. Those are something,
as you get older too, it affects other people. Like if you work with other people and you drop the ball, then that affects other people. If you're doing a school project in college or high school and you drop the ball, that affects the grade of other people. It starts to affect your decisions as a person, no matter what your age is, starts to actually, seep into other people's life who have different expectations for themselves. By the way, if they're like a type A, like to be very good, and now they have to rely on someone who barely wakes up on time, and they don't have any real self authority over their life, then they're going to struggle and bring others down, and that's not fair.
Yeah. And if you haven't given them the tools that they need to get through that first year, is already hard to be away from home if they go away from home, and there's homesickness. They don't have all the friends that they've been all the way through. My kids had the same friends from some of them from kindergarten all the way through senior year. So they're trying to learn how to make new friends, which they've never really had to do. It's a lot easier to make friends when you're 5 than when you're 18, 19.
It really is.
And a lot of them are being exposed to things for the first time, whether that's parties and alcohol and relationships that feel adult, a lot of things. So if you give them the tools that they need, at least to get through the academic part easier and get to class, and also teaching them from high school. I sat down with my kids when they were able to make their own high school schedules, which I think is usually like sophomore, junior year. to talk to them about, look, I know you struggle to get up in the morning. So a 0 period class is probably not for you. Even if you really want to take that class, if you really want to take that class, then you need to figure out how you're going to get up.
Because they're going to look inward and go, it's me. I can't do this.
Right.
Like they're going to get overwhelmed because they feel like they can't do this when they really can. It's just be realistic about what they can do and encourage them to be realistic. Yeah. Shoot for the stars, challenge yourself a little bit. But if you've never woken up past or before 9 a.m., don't take a 6 a.m. 0 period class. Like you're going to hate it and you're going to be struggling and you're going to be mad and you're going to like, you're going to be
grouchy all morning. You're not going to be at your best for that class. So probably not going to ace it. I mean, just knowing yourself.
Take it. Prepare them during the summer. We always take like the last 2 weeks or week of school to like pretend that every morning is a morning we have to get up for school. So we go to bed early. We, like, because you don't want the shell shock, sometimes like in high school, freshman year, 0 period PE was a mandatory thing. We had to do it unless we played a sport. So sometimes they may not have that schedule and then now they have to change because they have to do something. Help them prepare ahead of time, just like you're helping yourself prepare ahead of time is also a big one too, because
and the kind of questions that you talk to your child about also make a difference. Instead of saying, we're going to do this, asking your child, what do you think you need to be able to be successful at this? Lets them problem solve for themselves and helps them figure out what works best for them without as much prompting from you.
Yeah.
Because learning their own systems and what works. And sometimes, honestly, sometimes the structure doesn't work at all. I mean, I homeschooled my oldest for 1.5 years in high school because the structure of our very competitive, very intense public high school his mental health was suffering. It was not for him. So those are decisions also to make as a family and to advocate for your child to make for themselves, because maybe, the structure of a university is not for them.
Yeah.
Maybe they have to find their path and they have to find as an adult what works for them, what they need to be successful. And that's what we all want. We want our kids to be successful no matter what that means for that particular individual person.
Yes.
So
that's very important because a lot of us get caught up in, your older brother or older sister is this way, why aren't you like this? Like, oh, your older brother wakes up on time and does stuff. Like, why aren't you? Well, it's a completely different person. So you have to, set course differently for each individual child and not expect them to fit some mold that their sibling has already done, because that's what your first child, never struggled with getting up in the morning, but now your second child is a little bit likes to sleep in. You can't expect them to act the same way, because then they're going to have these expectations on themselves that don't fit who they are as a person. Mm-hmm. And that's also going to cause some rifts in the morning and some problems.
Yeah. My younger son really struggled academically. Always. He's just a very visual person, and certain classes are hard for him that are less visual. I guess he's artistic, he's creative, he's extremely smart, but just academic learning environment wasn't necessarily his strong suit. So he really didn't think that he was going to attend a 4-year university. Then, the school, everyone's talking about what colleges they're going to and getting all excited. And he decided, okay, I do want to go. And he did, and he was very successful. He graduated with 2 degrees. But the thing is, the first year he struggled. He was behind a whole semester because he was on academic probation. He realized that for him, what comes easy to some people doesn't necessarily come easy to him. So what he needed for him, and we had that conversation. He came home from break and he said, I don't want to go back. I'm failing out already. This isn't for me. I can't do it. I'm not smart. I said, oh my gosh, don't say that. First of all, you are so smart. Second of all, what do you need? What do you need to be successful? And we came up with a plan. He needed to move into his own apartment that was like a studio. He could close the door, no distractions, focus on academics. He said,
it's just an environmental issue.
Right. He said in the dorms.
And they think a dorm environment or a certain environment is suitable for them. And then they find out that it's not. And then they think that it's them when in reality, it's just their environment.
But it's just knowing who you are. And that takes time. And we can guide our kids through that. Because sometimes I feel like I see who they are before they do. But he
also,
realized
they change as people.
they
We think
change,
we know
right?
them and they've changed all of a sudden. And you're like, but hold on,
Right. I mean, he realized that in the dorms, there were constant interruptions. People would come knock on his door. Hey, you want to throw around the Frisbee? You want to do this? You want to go to a party? Hard for him to focus. He lived with 3 other guys, and there was a lot of noise. There was a lot of distractions. And he also, he was in a fraternity, and he realized that the time commitment required of that, he just couldn't fulfill his obligation. So as upset as he was about it, he resigned from the fraternity, and he got right back on track with his academics. He graduated a little later than we were expecting, but he graduated with 2 degrees. He's very successful now. But it took him that whole first year of college to figure out what was working and what wasn't working. And he was ready to quit. So it required that conversation of like, I believe that you can do this if this is what you want. Let's first talk about, is this what you want?
Yeah.
And if you do want it, I believe you can do it, but let's figure out how to make you be successful. That's different for everybody.
Even if your kid doesn't come to you and have that conversation with you, like, if you see them struggling in the morning, maybe they aren't away at college, but maybe they're in junior high or high school, and the new periods of, you go in elementary school from having one teacher and one thing all day to like junior high, you're going from back and forth. It's different. And you see this struggle in the shift. You just need to, if you see them struggling, have a conversation with them. And like you said, ask what they need to be successful, because you may think you know what they need and you're probably on point and you could probably add to it, but simply asking them gets them to problem solve. But it also gives you insight on what they're struggling with so that you guys can build a really great resolution together.
Yeah. And you also need to get out of at least for me, I needed to get out of my own head and let go of my own expectations. When my oldest I said, what do you need to be successful? You're literally you're failing ceramics. Like how do you fail ceramics?
How can we get through this together?
Yeah. You're failing PE. And
Yeah.
he said, I need to not be there anymore. This environment is toxic for me and I need to not be there. And he fully admitted he was sabotaging himself. He was resisting the structure of the school. He needed to not be there. That was hard for me to hear because this was my oldest child going to high school. And I wanted him to go to prom. I wanted to take pictures of him with his prom date. I wanted him to walk at graduation. I wanted him to do football game. I wanted the experience that I had.
Yeah. You had a vision in your head of how this was going to go.
But it wasn't what he wanted. And it wasn't what was right for him. And I needed to let go of my own expectations. That was super selfish of me, wanting to experience that with him. If he didn't want it, and he once he was home, A+ student, 4.0 grade point average. He just needed to get out of that environment. So if that takes flexibility on both parts and honesty, communication, all of those things we talked about in the building relationship with your kids episode. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I think the transition from elementary school to middle school is very hard because like you said, the structure changes.
In responsibility and a shift in the structure, and you're now remembering multiple teacher names, and
no more recesses, no more fun field trip type things. Suddenly academics are the focus, and you switch from 1 class to 6 at least. And sometimes some schools are on a block schedule, so you have like periods 1, 3, and 5, and then 2, 4, and 6. And every day what you need to bring is totally different. Every teacher is totally different. And there's hormones, there's all kinds of other stuff going on.
There's the whole natural hormonal thing happening internally. Yeah. It's your first real look at like semi-adulting as a child, because you have to just like we have to remember our work schedule and, our kids' schedule and, all the schedules we have to remember. Now they have to remember, Wednesday's odd class day. So 1, 3, and 5, or, so-and-so has a test due this day, it's hard, but
and we're talking about kids who are like 12, like,
yeah. That's why I love middle school. And that's why I wanted to teach middle school, because like they think they know everything, and then they show up to middle school and they realize like how unprepared for world they are. They're like, oh, you think yeah, like see how you handle this. It's a different, they go back to as 6th graders, they go back to relying on you, and then they get the groove and they know the system, and then they go back to knowing everything again.
And then they go away to college, and that's the next really hard transition. And they go through a whole period of time where they're like, I thought I was an adult. I am not equipped. because there's a lot. I mean, nobody's telling you what time to be home and go to bed.
Oh,
Nobody's telling you to go to bed at all.
And just don't show up to class. You
wasted all that money.
Money. Like there's no one's calling your mom.
No.
Telling you didn't go to class that day.
And nobody's coming in and say, hey, honey, turn off that video game and go to bed. They could stay up all night. No one's telling you, did you even eat a single vegetable today?
Still think that I think college should start at 35. Because I never felt prepared. It's just too much at once of like too much, also I haven't gotten there yet, but I feel like when they can drive, that changes things too, because you are no longer driving them. You have to remind them what time they have to leave. You're no longer you're reminding them on Sunday that to be back by a certain time because school's the next day. But like, it's less, I feel like the less actual control we get, the harder it is.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And do a thing about it,
That's why I think all these tips and tricks are the most important to start if you have kids in elementary school age. That's the time to implement all of these. I think that transition from half day kindergarten or whatever to real school schedule is the perfect time to get all these things in place. Now, if you're past it, I mean, there's always time to do course corrections, but I think taking these tricks and tips to heart for that kind of period of time is probably the most beneficial. Mm-hmm. Because by then you'll be in a groove.
And for world preparedness for them. Even if they don't go to college, they're going to live on their own at some point, and they're going to need to know where their keys are, where, they're just going to need to know life skills. And this is making your life easier, but also teaching them life skills that they just need in life, regardless of where they go to school or what they do with their lives.
Yeah. Everybody needs to figure out what works for them. At some point, they're going to have to go to a job every day. Well, most people do, where they need to bring whatever supplies they need. They need to remember what's going on that day and dress appropriately and be on time. And these are all things that start in elementary school. So hopefully this insight helps everyone who's struggling with this. I've been there. Megan is currently there.
Just find a system that works for you and your child and try it for a week and see what happens.
Yeah, adjust it as necessary.
Try it in our Facebook comments. Let us know how that went and what you tried, because I'm interested to see. It's always
I am too. Yeah, I am too. I would be interested to hear what works for other people. I'm sure there's a lot of cool tricks and tips.
I'm still learning.
We don't know.
I feel like I do a lot of tips and tricks myself, but I am always open to more. The more I can do,
the better.
I just Hunger Games symbol to all the moms out there. They know what I'm talking about. I just want to not have to microwave my coffee like 3 times.
Oh yeah. I think I've said this on here before. When I open the microwave and yesterday's coffee is still in it.
That's what this is really all about. I don't want to have to spend $6.75 at the Starbucks drive-through because I literally gave up on my coffee that I made at 6 a.m. I just want to enjoy it. So if I can find more tips and tricks in these comments on Facebook that could help me not microwave my coffee anime
that'd be great for everyone. And to have, a positive, happy morning is what we all want. I still some days work on that. So
I want to say
I don't even have kids at home anymore.
Kids have a positive, happy morning, but really though, it's totally okay to do these things because you deserve a positive, happy morning yourself. We all deserve to be in a good space, because a lot of women literally drive from the drop off to work and they have to take all of that on their shoulders with them and then try and succeed in the work world. And that's not easy either. So
no, I've been there and I've had those days where drop off was a nightmare. And consequently the rest of my work day felt intense and agitated and stressed out. And I didn't have the things I needed with me. And it was just one of those days where you want to have a do-over.
Right.
So
one of my trying to help you memories is when you and I went to go see Bad Moms in the movie theater, because do you remember that? Because it wasn't it was a hilarious movie, but there were so many relatable moments on that morning that she was driving her kids to school and she was late and they blamed her. And then she got coffee on her from the mom that doesn't have anywhere to go. And then she shows up to work and they're already disappointed in her. It's those are most mornings for moms.
Yeah. So, I will tell, I don't know if I've shared this story. I will tell you that I was having one of those mornings where I had to drop off the kids at school and go straight to work. And we were having a hectic day. I didn't have the make ahead breakfast ready. I think I gave the kids Pop-Tarts.
Yeah.
And one of
okay.
yeah, they ate. Well, one of my kids ate the frosting top off the Pop-Tart and left the like crust and the jam part. They just ate the frosting. And as they were getting out of the car, they tossed it into my front. I think they climbed over my front seat to get out of the car.
Yeah.
And so the Pop-Tart ended up on my driver's seat without the frosting top. So I got back in the car and sat down, got to the office, and I'm walking into my office building, and the elevator doors were mirrored, and I look and I have a strawberry Pop-Tart stuck to my ass in my business suit. And I stood there with this look on my face, like, of course I have a Pop-Tart on my butt.
When you don't even like flinch or move.
I was like, yes, this is my life. I should leave it there as a symbol of my momhood. I went into the bathroom at the office and I was scraping off strawberry jam off of, thankfully it was a charcoal gray business suit, so it was dark.
I don't mean to laugh, but oh my gosh, that's so
yeah.
bad.
I've turned in completed escrow files with Fruit Loops stuck to the bottom of them. And these are true stories of,
that's why I'm saying
#mom life
movies. I have a conversation on the side with you, because like you would not even believe the real life stuff that happens to you. You can only picture like Mila Kunis doing it in this Bad Moms movie, and they do it to an exaggerated level. Like she spills coffee on herself because it's so shocking.
Yeah. Or one morning,
but for you, that's
my life. One morning I was rushing so bad to get the kids in the car to get to school. I was wearing high heels that day because I had a presentation. I had them in my hand. I was rushing to get the kids in the car. I set them down at some point, didn't pick them back up again. Drove, because I don't drive in heels. I always have them off.
Gosh.
Drove the kids to school, dropped them off, got all the way. I commuted an hour to work every day, got all the way to my office, got out of the car, no fucking shoes. No shoes.
No shoes.
I'm dressed up for a presentation. I have no shoes. I had to
What
go.
did you do?
I called my office. I told them I was going to be 15 minutes late. I drove to the nearest Target. I bought myself some cheap pair of heels.
Did you walk into Target with no shoes?
Yes.
Obviously. So
yes.
Shoes. They thought you were like a homeless lady who had just been given $20 and like finally you're getting yourself your first.
And I was so upset because at the time I did not have the financial means to be making those kinds of impulsive purchases.
Because you're thinking of
anger. Perfectly good shoes probably sitting on my kitchen counter. And then that was one of the turning points where I was like, I need to get my life in order.
Mine is getting extreme,
ridiculous.
I left my coffee cup, and I'm sure other women can relate to this story. I left my coffee cup on top of my car as I was rushing to throw the kids in and buckle up the seats. But I had been driving for a while, and then I went to go grab the coffee cup, and then I couldn't, and then it took me a while to remember like that I had left it on top of the car. And I just was wondering at what point did it fall, because I didn't even hear it. Like I was so in zone of we're late, everything's chaos. Like I threw the kids in the car and drove that I'm like, I legit was that woman that drove off with a ceramic coffee cup just falling over and making a crazy sound like you would see in a TV show. That I was like, I deserve better. Like that's my first thought was like, you deserve shoes from home that you didn't have to pay for. You deserve to not have to walk in a Target barefoot and go, please excuse, I know your rules, but I don't have, this is why I'm here. This is my purpose. Like we deserve as women better. And that's my main.
I deserve not to be.
It's like, it's not for the kids. It is for the kids and their sanity, but really it's for us too, because we have to live with this.
I deserve not to be in the office bathroom scraping strawberry jam off my butt at 8:00 in the morning. Yeah, I agree. I do. But thankfully I got better and better at it. I got help. Once I could financially afford it, I did get help. Like I had help with the kids after school, help with the kids in getting dinner and stuff started because.
And if you don't have help, sometimes older children can be big help to younger siblings.
Yes.
Hey, Emma, help your sister put on her shoes.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it. You have an assistant.
That's another thing
right now. You know,
that's another thing is not to be afraid to ask for help. Yeah. My older kids helped with the littler one.
Yeah, they did. They were very good at it. Even with help, they were still helping because it's like all hands on deck.
No, Colin was like
big help.
Gabby's third parent.
I want to name names, but I just remember Colin repeatedly putting on Gabby's shoes in the morning, and I was totally hired to do that.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm doing this right now.
Colin. And when the kids, when the kids were really small, I would rely on my grandmother a lot or my sister. And
don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to know that you have hit your human limit, and that's okay. You don't have to have everything together. If you have access to help, carpool. Oh my gosh, so many women are like, take my kid, I'll take your kid.
Right. When my kids got older and they had a lot of sports and things like that, I would make friends with the other moms in competitive cheer, and we would carpool and we would take turns going to the meets that were out of town.
Of making those friends.
Yeah. Well, I'm still friends with some of those women to this day,
but
I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have done it without their support. It does take a village. Moms are the best. Yeah, we have a group text among the moms of my youngest and all her classmates, and we call it the village. And we would literally come together and ask, like, who can pick up my kid on Thursday afternoon, or can somebody take my kid this morning to school?
You have a spare pull-up, I'm out. You don't want to have to run to Target at 8 a.m. when you have to go take your kid to school. You just need one pull-up. You know what I mean? Like, ask your village.
We supported each other, and we continue to support each other to this day. So now that our kids are in college and we don't see each other all the time, I really honestly, I couldn't have done a lot.
That's a big one. That's a really big one.
I couldn't have done 4 kids in that short span of time without the help that I had. So
I feel like it's naturally our job. It's naturally on us to do it. Like, we had these kids, it's our kids. It's not their problem to fix our mornings, but like, honestly, what's been stacked up for you, your assignment is unrealistic sometimes. Like, it's unrealistic, even if you prepare. So like, if someone's there and offering help, don't be too proud to take it. It's totally okay to take it, and it will allow more mental space for you to be a more happier, healthier person and show up better for yourself, your kids, blah, blah, blah. If you just like assign tasks to other people who are capable of helping you.
And don't take it all on. Make your life easier whenever possible. Figure out strategies that make your life easier, and it's okay.
I think we've talked about this, but it's like, we think we have to do all of these things and have everything and have it all and be like a million things at once, because that's just what we're trained to do now. It's okay.
No, for moms, I mean, we really need to give ourselves some grace, because it's the hardest job that anyone does in their lifetime. And we're, of course, through this, I want to say that, because through this whole episode, we've been saying moms and mom, but like, I was raised by a single dad. Dads do this work too, and it's just as hard for them. And I think, I know for my dad, he was running a company while he was raising 2 daughters by himself. And that was in the 70s and 80s. And there wasn't very role models for that. And there wasn't a lot of
now, like, seminars dads can take with their daughters to learn how to like braid their hair, so hair is easier in the mornings, because sometimes it's just dad, and dad also doesn't want to have to send their kid to school knowing that they just live with dad and he doesn't know how to fishtail braid. So you see him out there like doing it because they are doing it and doing it well and doing it the same way moms are. Whoever is in charge in the morning, help them.
I feel like men in the workplace get a little bit less flexibility when it comes to kid issues. And that's changing, thankfully. I know when my dad was, working single dad, there was just not an excuse he could say. He could not say, my daughter's homesick from school, I can't come today, or I need to reschedule my meeting because this, the school just called. That was not acceptable at that time. And it is becoming more acceptable. So because we are both moms, that's the word we used throughout this podcast. We are by no means excluding male or non-binary parents.
Sometimes, like I said, it changes. Sometimes mom goes to work now and dad stays home. The pandemic kind of shifted a lot of roles for people too.
Right.
So
and families
having to learn a whole new system that they weren't used to.
Exactly. Families come in all different types and forms now. We've got grandparents raising children. We've got aunts and uncles raising kids. We've got families with 2 moms, families with 2 dads, families with single parents on both sides.
All types.
So this applies to everybody. We just said mom because we are both moms, and that's
just my language. And I'm sorry, I'm still that person that will show up to things and talk mostly about mom stuff. So that's
but please understand that all of these tips and tricks are inclusive and meant for everyone. So we appreciate
to all opinions on
Yes.
because I'm still in the process and I haven't even hit junior high yet. Now I'm scared. Now that we've discussed this, I'm like, oh shoot, it doesn't get easy.
Yep. No, it doesn't. Well, as always, we thank you guys for joining us. We are super excited to see the growth on our YouTube channel and on our podcast. If you listen or watch, we appreciate all of you. Carry over the discussion to our Facebook discussion group. We love to see it. And please read this article. I think the writer has some of her own tips that are separate from ours that we didn't cover. And so there's still value in the article. If anything we talk about on the podcast, we never cover it completely. We don't read word for word from the article at all. We give our own spins. So it's still definitely worth popping over to the website and giving it a read.
Absolutely.
So yeah, thank you guys all. And we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. Don't forget to bookmark our site, she'safullonmonet.com, and subscribe to our newsletter. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. If you're enjoying this podcast, it helps us a lot if you can follow, rate, and review. See y'all next week.